Hey guys, Marcinkin here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so with the release of the LR Super Saiyan 4 Goku on Global, I guess it's finally time to update the LR top 10 list for Global. I haven't done one since part 2 of the Worldwide celebration. Because obviously, I mean, we got an LR for part 2 of the Turles celebration, but let's be honest, right? The Int LR Goku, he can be okay sometimes, right? But he wasn't scratching the top 10, right? So there was no real need to redo the list. Some of the placements maybe would have changed, I suppose, but I didn't do one since then. So we are going to be jumping in and doing top 10 LRs on Global as of today, recording the 5th of November. Now, as always with these top 10 lists, like, I don't take these super seriously. I don't keep like a log and every single day, you know, I use these units and I might move one up or down a space. This is all based on just my personal experience with the game, how I feel about the units. I wanted to, you know, wait a couple of days to do one with Goku on there so I could use him in a couple of different events, the new LR Goku. And so yeah, this is based on my personal experiences. If you guys don't agree, that's fine, you know, let me know down below in the comments section what things you don't agree with. But as always, when it comes to these kind of things, everybody has their own opinions. You know, I have my opinions based on my gameplay. I never put units in these top 10 lists based on just like, I think this unit is cool, and not because like, you know, and there are no agendas in the top 10 lists. So if you disagree with any of the placements, let me know down below in the comment section. I'm obviously happy to listen to all your guys' feedback. Just, you know, be chill, keep it cool down below in the comment section. And I will say some of the changes on this list have been made because of the current meta. So this is like the top 10 LRs on Global at the moment because of the meta in the game that we have. So a lot of units' performance in the Dismal Future Red Zone stages have been taken into account when creating this list, right? So a lot of the units that will be on here who maybe have changed positions from last time, some of that will be down to how well they perform in the newer Red Zone stages, which, you know, that's not the whole game. It's 5 stages, but those are the hardest stages that we have in the game right now. Obviously, Fusion Zamasu being an AoE unit has had a huge effect on a lot of characters. I'm not going to instantly write off any units that are not good against AoEs, but obviously that performance will you know, will affect their placements a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and start off with number 10. Now, by Goku being added, the bottom part of the list has shifted off. So obviously at number 10, I have the Tech LR Vegito that fuses into, transforms into Vegito Blue. This pushes off Gogeta because, as I explained in my previous video, STR Gogeta and Tech Vegito are very, very similar, but they're not exactly the same unit. So I don't agree with putting them in the exact same spot on a tier list, right? Like, 2 characters can't be number 9, or like in this case number 10, right? So on the last tier list, I think I had them at, I think it was maybe 8 and 9, respectively. So I don't see the point of putting them both at number 8 and then having a unit at number 9, because you're saying that both of those units are better than the one at number 9, right? So we're going to have Vegito at number 10. So Gogeta, by that logic, would obviously be 11, but this is a top 10 list. So sorry, Gogeta, you're not in this video. Vegito is still very, very good. He obviously has dropped maybe a little bit on the list because of the Dismal Future Red Zone. 3 of the big bosses are Int, right? Goku Black, the Rose Goku Black, the Fusion Zamasu starts as Int and does AoEs, and then the Zamasu that becomes Rose and Zamasu starts as Int as well. And of course, it's once Vegito transforms into Vegito Blue, he becomes very effective in those stages, right? The turn he transforms, he has a 100% chance to dodge, and then after that, he's firing off a bunch of attacks, can get up to some pretty good defense, and obviously by then against like Fusion Zamasu, you'll be past the AoE phase, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But as I explained in my last video, I don't want to go into a huge amount of detail here and spend too much time on slot number 10, but I put Vegito above Gogeta largely because of his guaranteed additional supers, whereas unfortunately STR Gogeta can very often do a super attack and then just a bunch of additional normals. So Vegito often gets more super attacks than him, and of course with one of the other big new units in the game being a new Vegito Blue, he has a perfect link partner, and that rotation, if you can get the AGL Vegito Blue out and then have this guy with him, that rotation goes pretty crazy. I mean, Gogeta links well with the AGL Vegito Blue as well, but just not as well as this guy, right? So between the two, I think this guy is just above Gogeta. So Gogeta would be at 11, but it would be very close. So then at number 9, we have Vegeta and Trunks. Now, I think this may be the first thing straight away on the list that surprises a few people. Maybe some people won't agree. In the last tier list, I had Vegeta and Trunks below the 5-year fusions, I believe. But with the Dismal Future Red Zone, like I say, affecting Vegito and Gogeta's performance largely against the AoE Zamasu, I feel like these guys have become really, really good. Because, of course, when you are fighting when you have a full Future Saga team, which, of course, that team was massively buffed by all of the Worldwide Celebration releases, you can use their active skill a lot earlier. You can use it on turn 3. Which of course gives everybody a defensive buff, does some damage, gets guaranteed crits for them for the rest of the turn. So I find myself using these guys a lot in the hardest content at the moment. Obviously they have aged a little bit, but considering they are a year old, because these guys were the Tanabata LR for last year, so these guys have definitely hung in there pretty well. Now, of course, you know, turn 1, they eat a super slot 1, they're going to take a lot of damage, but they still tank those kind of attacks better than a lot of the other units in the game. So I think these guys are in a very good place. A lot of the new units link very well with them. You know, they're another one of the units that the new LR Goku is on a 200% lead for. Like, characters will keep coming out that are on Bond of Parent and Child, and any of these characters from these big final fights of certain arcs will obviously then be on Battle of Fate. So these guys' 200% team will just constantly keep getting buffs, and they are still very useful even now. So we have them at number 9. Now moving on to number 8, we have the physical LR Sword of Hope Trunks. This guy, I do think he edges out the Vegeta and Trunks just a little bit, even though they do have very different roles. Like, obviously this guy like just dumps all over them in terms of the damage output. Like, this guy puts out insane damage, but his defense is where he can be an issue in this first phase. You know, you want to get those additional supers, so he builds up damage reduction within the turn. Even as a physical unit, he takes some damage from the Merge Zamasu AoE if it hits him before he attacks, which, since it's very often in slot 1, that's very often the case. But of course, you know, he does put out a ton of damage. I do think he is good. I think he's a little bit underrated by some people in the community. And then, of course, there is the fact that once you do get him to go into standby, which literally is just from the 5th turn, there's no other restriction. Once you go into the standby, he does become like pretty much like an invincible slot 1 tank, right? I've had him tank the physical fusion Zamasu super attack in slot 1 with no items active, and he does eat that very, very well. So his standby mode is very powerful. He obviously does then himself do a bunch of extra damage, and then you finish off with the finish attack, which can do some very big damage as well. I'm still not a fan of how underwhelming I find the super attack animation for the Sword of Hope at the end of the standby, but I haven't factored that into the tier list, right? But he's definitely very good. I think the major difference between him and the unit that we're going to get to next is that whilst their standbys are kind of similar in terms of defensive potential, this guy does his big Spirit Sword attack, and then obviously if you are still in the event, you're probably going to be near the end at that point, to be fair, but then you go back to being this Trunks. And then you go from there. So maybe that gives it away a little bit, but coming in at number 7, this is where I have put the new LR Goku. So I do think he's a top 10 LR. As him releasing right now in this current meta on Global, I think he's at number 7 based on some of the other units, and obviously we'll go into the reasons behind that. He definitely struggles, especially at, I mean, obviously, again, my experience with him is at 55%. I'm not saying, like, you know, he's bad at this point because he's 55% and, like, I'm comparing him to other units that are Rainbow. But even with more dupes and higher stats, I've seen people saying the same things. I've seen clips with people that have got him at, like, 79% or Rainbow, or people that used him on the private server before he came out on Global. The design of his kit is that he wants to be in slot 1, right? He gets an extra 20% damage reduction in slot 1. He only has to take 1 hit or dodge a hit, and he gets that extra defensive buff for 3 turns. But the problem is, you go into some of these red zone stages, and if he eats a super in slot 1, he just immediately dies. It's the first turn is his biggest stumbling block, and the problem with that is that in this current meta, all of the difficult events are incredibly hard straight away from turn 1, so that is really bad for this Goku. Now, if you can get his 5 hits in and you get his standby, once you go into the standby, obviously Oob can become an absolutely, like actually literally invincible tank, because he gets 10% damage reduction per type orb obtained, and then he changes orbs himself. So I've had a couple of runs already where you just get to pick up 10 or more orbs, which means he has 100% or more damage reduction, so he can't take damage. So that's really good, and this is who I was comparing to obviously when I mentioned Trunks. They're both very, very good defensively when you go into the standby. Trunks then obviously actually can still attack and can put out tons of damage, but then of course his standby runs out, he goes back to normal Trunks, whereas this guy, once you've finished with his standby, which only lasts for the 1 turn, you're then transforming into full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, who, if the card was just this card, if he didn't have a first form or a standby, and the card was literally just this, I would move him at least a place up the... I mean, he probably would move 2 or 3 places up the list, at least, based on who I've got in the spots above him. But he's placed where he is because he doesn't start out as full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, right? I put out a video yesterday where I used him against the Red Zone Goku Black and then Red Zone Zamasu, and I didn't get, even though one of the runs I did win, one of the runs I lost, I think some of the runs it wasn't his fault, but some of them he did take some big supers on turn 1. But none of those runs I actually even got to use his standby, because he has to get hit 5 times to even get it, and then you get full power Goku out the turn after that. So with these events the way they are at the moment and how short some of them are, you don't even get to see full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, which is a shame because he's really, really good. So a little bit unfortunate. I think this may be, some people will find this a controversial placement. Like, I do really like this unit. I was super hyped for him to come out on Global. I just think in the current meta, he struggles a little bit. Now, Global doesn't have the Omega fight from the Shadow Dragon event. We should be getting that within the next few weeks. And he is really good in that event because it's kind of one of the more old style events where it's a little bit easier at the start and you can get him built up and then get full power Goku out at the end and he goes crazy. And if we start getting some more events that are a bit like that, where they're a little bit longer and not as like full throttle on turn 1, he could potentially move up this list, right? But just based on the current meta of Global as it is today, this is where I put him at number 7, right? So then we have number 6 is the LR Blue Boys, the Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta that fuse into Vegito Blue. Now I know a lot of people have been discussing, I posted a take about it on Twitter yesterday, but based on the Red Zone stuff and the current meta, I put these guys above this Goku, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, because like turn 1, you put the Blue Boys in slot 1, they're guarding, they have built-in dodge. Now, obviously, if they take a super from one of these big bosses, they can still take a bit of damage if they don't dodge it, but they're obviously mitigating that a little bit with the guard. I mean, turn 1, slot 1, they take less damage from a super than Super Saiyan 4 Goku does, right? And, of course, they have the much, much higher chance to dodge it, because for Goku, you want him to get hit to get your standby. I've seen a lot of people now not even giving him the free 5 dodge that he gets for being an int unit. So that super in slot 1, he is not dodging that, right? Now, I've actually had him level 5 dodge a couple of attacks, which has been quite good, but that's detrimental to his standby, which you obviously want him to get. Whereas these guys, I mean, I know that as long as I've got a Future Saga ally, right, so they're actually getting their, you know, full passive intro buff, I can just throw them on the team in any of these Dismal Future Red Zones, and they can be a solid slot 1 unit that will keep me safe. Now, the interesting comparison between them and Goku is they are both units that you want to get their final form out for them to become incredibly dominant. And these guys are, you don't have to jump through as many hoops, but you obviously have to have an HP restriction, which in some of the difficult events is not that difficult, but sometimes you can do like too well and you don't get them to come out. Because the thing that is the major downside to this unit, which most people are, you know, really not liking about their design, is you get to turn 5, you're not at the HP restriction, now they don't have guard, and then they can potentially get you killed. Now they still have the dodge, so you can still get through on those turns, whereas obviously with Goku, as long as you've survived by the time you get to turn 5, you're either going to be going into the standby that turn, because he's already been on rotation twice before that, or you might even already be in the standby, right? Depends how many attacks he's had to take before then. So in the late game, I do think Super Saiyan 4 Goku could be better. I will say that when it comes to your own personal like rankings and what you think about where I've put the certain units, if you were to put Goku above them, I think that would be fine, right? If anyone wanted to argue that you should swap these two placements, the Super Saiyan 4 Goku and the LR Blue boys, I probably wouldn't argue with that too much. I think there are arguments for why Goku could be above them, but just like I say, in these last few days of my experience of using him in all of the tough like red zone stages, I definitely find that he has real problems right at the beginning, whereas these guys definitely do not. And then of course once you get Vegito out, I think it's an interesting comparison to compare Vegito to full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Because this guy has built-in dodge, does multiple additional supers and is effective against all types, whereas the Goku, he gets like guaranteed crits. He only does the one big super unless you get the hidden potential, but obviously he's a super good tank as opposed to having dodge. So they're both very powerful, but like the comparison between these two specifically, full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegito Blue, I think is very interesting. But obviously remember that Vegito Blue also has an active skill where on that turn he is invincible because he has 100% chance to dodge. So I think it would be an interesting comparison between the two. Let me know what you guys think about full power Super Saiyan 4 and Vegito Blue. If we're just talking about these two forms, which one do you think is better? So we'll move on from number 6 onto number 5, which is Tech Fusion Zamasu. I still think Fusion Zamasu is a little bit above the Blue Boys, and since I think they're better than Goku, that's where I've put him. I think this guy is crazy. Like, again, even though I've talked about this tier list, I'm talking about their performance in the red zone. I still really am focusing on them and not their team, because I've seen a lot of people say that Zamasu should be below some of these other superclass units because they have better teams than him. Which again, like everyone does their tier lists or their top 10s differently. I like to base mine around the performance of the unit themselves. So I'm considering just them on a 200% team with a really good link partner and how good are they. That's how I look at them, not at like the rest of their team. Now, obviously for Zamasu, as long as the EZAs and the new units are good, he's about to get some huge buffs from the Heroes units. 2 of the units getting EZAs are on his 200% leader skill. Depending what Fu's leader skill is, he could be on there as well. So Zamasu's about to get some good buffs. But I think he's very good. Every time I use this guy, I'm still impressed with... He's really good at tanking. Obviously, it sort of wears off as the damage reduction ticks down. But he's really good at tanking early on. He does insane amounts of damage. He has the active skill / domain, like transformation into the infinite Zamasu, which obviously makes him completely invincible, and then he changes orbs and gives a little bit of support to the rest of the rotation. So I think this unit is really good. If the extreme units do come out and they cook with those for heroes, this guy will be eating good, because when the Super Saiyan 3 Rosé comes out, if they don't restrict him heavily for like heroes only teams and stuff, he's going to be on this guy's 200% leader skill. He's going to be a big buff to the team if he's a good unit. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Zamasu's team looks like after the heroes celebration. So then we move on to the top 4. Now I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on this because it hasn't changed too much since the last list. I have the GT Duo at number 4. Now, a lot of people, I'm sure, are thinking, you know, we're talking about the current red zone, current meta. These guys do take a lot of damage from Zamasu's AoE, but they don't get one-shot by it. And then once they've gotten a few super attacks off and you get back around to the next turn, they obviously tank it a lot better. And of course, with their HP restriction part of their standby, you could potentially get their standby straight away if you were to have them on turn 2, potentially. And their standby is still one of the things that makes them just absolutely insane. Like, this unit is still very good without the standby. Multiple supers, potentially 4 per turn. Each time they're stacking their attack, they're getting extra defense for that turn specifically, but they're building up damage reduction. But then you switch into Super Saiyan Vegeta, and then, you know, the whole team just goes crazy, right? Everybody gets 80% extra attack, 8 ki, which is crazy for the LRs. And then, of course, your team becomes literally invincible because anyone that dies, you get the revival, you fire off the Spirit Bomb. If you've got a few stacks in with them, it does insane amounts of damage. I still think these guys are easily top 5, even if you don't have them at number 4. They are incredibly good, and I still use them all the time. They link really well with new units. They're a good link partner for the new Goku, even though they don't have Saiyan Raw. So this unit is still fantastic. And then I have Future Gohan at number 3. I'm still really impressed with Future Gohan. I think when we first saw his details, a lot of people thought he was just instantly the new number 1. But I still think he's worthy of being in the top 3. As I always say, you know, I said at the beginning with these lists, you can move some placements around. We mentioned Goku and the Blues specifically, and I probably wouldn't have many issues with that. The top 3, I feel like you can have in almost any order. But I do feel like now, with the current situation and the current meta, this guy is just solidly at number 3. I think the other 2 units above him are the 2 that you could switch their placements if you wanted to, but I think they are both better than Future Gohan at this current standing in the meta. And this is the major change. I have switched. I have flipped on number 1 and 2 from my list from last time. So at number 2, we have Bulma. So Bulma definitely have arguments for being the best unit in the game. She does insane support, which travels over to the next rotation, which is an incredibly strong ability. You get the orbs, she gets a guaranteed additional super. She's raising defense on her supers. She has damage reduction. I mean, you just throw her on any team you can use her on. Like, if you have this unit and she's on the leader skill of the team that you use, then you use her. There's no reason not to. She's insanely good. The active skill, people overlook the fact as well, her active skill, it changes the orb field to STR, so she's going to get all the orbs. That gives you a massive heal, but a lot of people overlook the fact it also gives all allies 7 ki, 17% attack and defense, and makes them all attacks effective against all types. So her active skill turn is absolutely ridiculous. And so she is still very, very good. She's able to tank supers from some of these big red zone bosses. She does start to get a little bit, like, she has damage received minus 7% at the start of each turn up to 77%, and she does have guard for 7 turns. Once the guard runs out, she still has a lot of damage reduction to back her up, but she will start to take some damage from the big super attacks, but especially if it's post super for her, she's usually fine. So Bulma's still very, very good, but she's at number 2. I have seen the light. A lot of people mentioned on the last list that he should have been at number 1. But after more playing around in the red zone and stuff, like, are they ever going to release a unit that's better than LR Piccolo? I genuinely don't know. He's so good. Like, even in the new stages, right, the only thing that really is a problem for him is if he eats a super straight away in slot 1. As long as you have his intro up, he has guard. He starts taking some hits and he builds up. Even on turn 1, you get a couple of hits in and he's dropping like over 10 million attack. He just is an absolute beast throughout all of the red zone stages once he gets going. Like, he could have that issue where turn 1 is maybe not ideal for him. And then once you get to the point where his guard has run out, you know, some of these big bosses in the red zone are int. But once we start getting to that point, you can then start using his active skill, transform into Orange Piccolo, and, you know, he doesn't do insane damage to some of these big bosses now, especially if they're in and he's not critting. But the giant form obviously has that ability where the enemy can't then super attack you afterwards, as long as they super during the transformation, which is like a huge, like, cheat code for beating these difficult events, right? So Piccolo is just still absolutely crazy. You know, him having damage reduction, if you drop below that HP threshold, he gives you the heal and then has even more damage reduction. So he's just so good. He is such an amazingly designed unit. If he was a Goku card, like a Super Saiyan Goku, so he was on all Goku's categories and had those like Saiyan links and stuff, I think he would be like the undisputed best unit in the game forever almost, right? So but even as Piccolo, like, he has decent links and you can just throw him on other teams, and as long as you have a Bond of Master and Disciple ally on the team, they don't even have to be on the same turn, so you just need one other unit and then he's just an absolute beast. So the fact that he is almost a year old as well, he released in December 2022, and I think he is still the best LR in the game. And if we compare him to, like, whoever you want to say is the best TUR in the game, I don't think it's, you know, anyone would disagree that the best LR in the game is probably better than the best TUR in the game. So we are here almost a year later and Orange Piccolo is still the best unit in the game. So pretty crazy. But yeah, he's a beast. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Here is the full list so you can see the whole thing from 1 to 10. Piccolo, Bulma, Future Gohan, the GT Duo, Fusion Zamasu, Blue Goku and Vegeta, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Sword of Hope Trunks, Vegeta and Trunks, and Tech. Vegito. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Like I said, if you disagree on any of these placements, let me know what you think down below, where you would put these guys in your top 10 list. And like I say, keep it respectful. I'm perfectly happy to discuss all of my thought processes for these units down below. But yeah, like I say, just be chill. Everyone has different opinions. I know these tier lists can sometimes turn into an absolute nightmare, especially on Twitter, but I know you guys are better than that. So give me your thoughts down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.